Orion, the sequel to Cyberpunk 2077.
To the official CD Projekt Red website because they posted a bunch of new stuff with what they're doing with Orion through, yes, you guessed it, their job listings. First of all, starting out with Senior Quest Designer. We're going to scroll down here, of course. The idea here is to create the storyline on a detailed level. And we've got designing quests, communities, and open world events. This is a big highlight here. It's good to note that they're so focused up on, first of all, story elements, because I think that's king. That's why we love Cyberpunk 2077 is...
Yeah, people love Cyberpunk 2077 because of the story, the world, and the everything. But currently, oh man, it's a dodgy time to be a Cyberpunk fan, honestly. Considering that CDPR Project Red has, well, pretty much gone the complete woke route. From the initial interview where the owners of the company said that, yeah, we're gonna embrace diversity, inclusivity, and all of that stuff moving forward, to, well, now opening new locations in the most woke part of Canada, Montreal, if I'm not mistaken, and in California, which is horrible. Those places are known to ruin games. So, it's kind of exciting because people have high hopes for Orion. I also have high hopes for it, honestly. But, man, you cannot just stop honestly worrying about what could be the potential outcome of this with everything that happened in CDPR. My personal take on this is, after this disastrous launch of Cyberpunk 2077, where a bunch of refunds were handed out and whatnot, I'm pretty sure like a company like BlackRock saw the opportunity and just came in and said, hey, CDPR Red, you're currently getting sued on 2 or 3 different fronts where you're gonna lose. Because it's pretty obvious you lied to investors, you did this, you obfuscated things, and you hid key information from the public. It's not looking good now, is it, Chief? Are you gonna go down under? Because it did look like they're gonna honestly go down under. But they did not some magically. How? And my theory is, this is where some kind of Morgan and Chase, Vanguard, BlackRock, or something like that came in and said, hey, we got you, but now you need to play ball.
Is because of its narrative-driven, single-player experience first and foremost, and that's really what they're focusing up on here. But it does mention, yeah, something interesting here, communities, and of course, open world events. This was something that a lot of people felt like was kind of lackluster with Cyberpunk 2077, that the factions really didn't feel like they were fully fleshed out. And I really hope that they are focusing up on factions that are, of course, integrated into the world itself. You go through the open world, you know you've entered into that faction zone, that faction territory, and you could really feel the friction there. That would be really cool. But moreover, I really want to see the factions integrated in a way where they are kind of communicating with each other, either helping each other out, or maybe full-blown war with one another, and you can kind of get involved in that. I think that's what a lot of people wanted, considering that there were some cool things they did with The Witcher 3 and some of the factions there. But I really want to see the factions more fleshed out in that manner throughout the open world. And throughout all these job listings right here, I want to note that they're really focused on quality assurance, which I was relieved to see. We know how, of course, 2077 launched.
Yeah, well, after the launch, yeah, they are kind of big on the quality assurance part because, well, I think a lot of people did not expect it to go that bad. And, well, they obviously didn't expect it to go that bad. They probably expected it to go bad, but, man, the level of disaster when Cyberpunk launched, wow. That was just something else. And since that day, they have been, well, very, very full-on testing and fixing bugs and doing things like that. They have fixed so many bugs at this point for Cyberpunk 2077 and whatnot. It's kind of crazy. The redemption arc was definitely there, and it's still impressive.
But Phantom Liberty was a different story. More on that in just a moment. Again, we're heading in the right direction here. for Cyberpunk as a whole, as a franchise. Yeah, back to this. We have lead engine programmer, and what's really exciting again is that, yeah, we are on, of course, Unreal Engine 5. And I get even more excited about this because I've been playing another little game, I guess you would call it, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And I'm like, I think that maybe CD Projekt Red saw examples like this of what Unreal Engine was doing, and they're like, okay, it's a no-brainer. We're going on Unreal Engine 5. Honestly, I am very hopeful.
Wasn't this already known that they're gonna go for Unreal Engine 5 a long time ago? Didn't they already say, yeah, we're kind of like giving up on the current engine that we're using? It's not bad, but you know, Unreal 5 is just kind of superior in every sense.
For what CD Projekt will be able to do to be able to basically make an identifiable product on Unreal Engine 5 now after experiencing Rebirth, because I feel like Rebirth feels like a Square Enix game, you know what I mean? And I'm hopeful that they can make Cyberpunk feel like a Red Engine like 3.0 game. That's what I'm looking for, despite it being on Unreal Engine 5. And it seems like the Unreal tech experts over there at Epic know that this is what companies want. If I would compare Orion to any franchise, if you guys remember Uncharted when it came out, people were like, oh, that's cool, that game's awesome. And then Uncharted 2 came out with such a massive...
Look at this. Did you miss it? Did you notice this? Watch. Kind of just flying in the air. I mean, the game still has bugs, by the way.
And then Uncharted 2 came out with such a massive leap. I think we might see that within the Cyberpunk franchise. Of course, I really do want to keep my feelings guarded about this, but after Phantom Liberty, they have really proven themselves. And yes, there is something interesting missing from the job listing. Their focus here is on writing, is the single player experience, developing the open world. And you can see here that they are clearly focused on just that. What's missing? You'll notice there are no online...
Oof, HR. Look at that. HR manager, financial consultant, senior writer, cinematic designer, developer. Okay. Man, oof, the HR. Oh, how are they going to fill that? That's going to be the big one. Again, I don't think that CDPR Projekt Red is capable of making a good Cyberpunk game. That's obvious, right? Not really a huge thing to say. Everyone knows that, I think, at this point, especially after the expansion. But again, it's like, now it's just the flip of the coin. How woke is it going to be? How many problems are there going to be because of that? America, all that they said. This is going to be kind of crazy.
There are no online job applications. You don't see any indication that they want to build this out as a live service type experience, which for me would be a huge red flag if that was the direction that they wanted to head in with the Cyberpunk sequel. You don't see anything like indicating that they want to involve microtransactions in Cyberpunk 2077, at least yet, of course. Now, I know a lot of you guys want an online experience for the next Cyberpunk game, for them to essentially build upon what they already have, where you can play it with friends. I myself, if they really did do online, I want to see a more PvE experience. I've always said for years, for me personally, I think PvE has been untapped, and we've seen major success with games like Helldivers 2. So I'm down for like PvE. PvP is a different story. I think that's just like a whole other monster. But if they can nail down like an amazing, absolutely stunning PvE experience in an open world, I would definitely be for that. But with that being said, I just want a good single player narrative driven experience. If the next Cyberpunk game didn't have online at all, I'm there, man. Like, some of my favorite.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of people who are currently playing Cyberpunk or have played it and are saying, oh, this thing needs to be online. Nah, I don't think that's a thing. But admittedly, now you're probably thinking, is it safe from the woke garbage, considering it's not an online, constantly evolving, pay-to-play type of experience? Well, no, not really. Single-player games also suffer from this garbage. That's the problem. So this is not the saving grace that they're not going to go microtransaction heaven and whatnot, and it's not going to be a live service game. Admittedly, I think it's good. But admittedly, I'm also of the opinion that it's not the biggest deal if they go for, an online play element. It would be cool. If you could have an online element, it would definitely be cool. But, if it's not there, good. I mostly cared just about the story here.
Favorite games recently have been single player centric. And, I mentioned Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I am enjoying the hell out of that. I don't have to worry about a shop. I don't have to worry about a battle pass. I could just enjoy the hell out of a polished experience. And I really hope that CDPR is headed in that direction. Now, we got to talk about this headline right here. Phantom Liberty game director says Cyberpunk successor is in the fun phase of development. So yeah, this comes from Gabe Amatangelo, who was the game director for Phantom Liberty. And that's so noteworthy because he is working on Orion, of course. And that gives me a lot of hope because right here, Phantom Liberty, it turned out beautiful. So yeah, I say we get into this right now, shall we? I'm going to paraphrase this article a little bit. I don't want to read it word for word, of course. But this paragraph right here goes on to describe Amatangelo and how he basically got the troops together, rallied the troops together, I guess you would say, from a time of when they were really frustrated and down and out because of 2077's horrible launch. And how do you take your team who had such a horrible experience in the gaming industry with game development, years and years of work leading up to a tough launch, and then producing something like Phantom Liberty? So if he can do that.
By the way, that's a loading screen if anyone missed it. Because a lot of people don't notice this. That's a loading screen.
Imagine what he can do with Orion after this big win. The team has high morale. They have their heads on straight now. They developed a pipeline of development, which clearly now works. They also briefly talk about how they have backup systems on top of backup systems, just in case.
Man, I want this to succeed so badly, though. I want this to be a big thing that works out and is amazing. I hope that I am wrong about all these woke suspicions and whatnot. I really hope so. Because Cyberpunk 2077 is just something that's not kind of worth it, but it is worth it. And I want to be wrong on all of these things that could happen in their negative.
If things do go wrong and they kind of anticipate things and then adapt accordingly, which I think is just the smartest way to develop any type of game. Now, goes on to say this right here as well. It says the following: in a perfect world, when you're making a game, it's all ideation and concepts and putting stuff in concept art and then moving to the next stage once you're feeling solid about your ideas and maybe your story outline, and then you start prototyping things. We're in that stage, but it's kind of blurred, like prototyping some things as well as concepting some stuff and working on the story. So yeah, we got some prototypes going on. We've got some exploration, some pipeline set up, some story ideas being thrown at the wall, back and forth, concept art.
What do you even think, honestly, this Orion could be about? Is it going to be the continuation of the story? In some way, shape, or form? It's probably going to have Easter eggs of the old characters, the ones that people like the most. Probably, right? It could be something completely new. It could actually be a story about the continuation of the cyberpunk world in general. The Black Wall, something like that. Programs, some kind of major thing that changes the dynamic of the world that you live in. Something like that could be pretty interesting, right? There are so many amazing possibilities for the sequel and where it can actually go. It's kind of crazy, honestly.
That sort of phase, the fun phase. So they are very much in the infancy phase of this game. It sounds very, very exciting. Man, how I'd love to be a fly on the wall at CD Projekt Red right now to see them going through this process, some exciting stuff happening. But yeah, it goes on to mention something very, very interesting, and that is the tech beyond like Unreal Engine 5 and consoles. So check it out right here. It goes on to say this: I did ask him if game console tech is where he wants it to be to meet his ambitions for the game,
no.
especially given recent online discussions about new generations of Xbox and PlayStation consoles. And sure, Amatangelo wishes tech was further along, but he admits he might always be wishing for that. I wish there were holodecks, you know what I mean. So yeah, we haven't really discussed this too much, but I would expect that this next Cyberpunk game to be around the launch of, the PlayStation 6 and the next Xbox, which, graphically speaking, it would be very, very big. That's not to say, of course...
That's not true. That's not gonna happen like that. Okay, the current... Consoles are always gonna be lacking 5 years at the bare minimum behind PCs and capabilities. Because when now PlayStation and Xbox are making their next generation consoles that are gonna release in, 2 or 3 or whatever years, they are not putting the current even best things that are available to them into their machines that are gonna get released in 2 or 3 years. They need it to be in a, certain specific price range, for a lack of a better word, right? So they are looking at tech that's good, but it was good like a year or 2 or 3 years ago. So from that standpoint, in 2 or 3 years, whenever the new Xboxes, PlayStations, and whatnot releases, they're gonna have objectively tech in them that was 5 years old. So again, Xbox, PlayStation, and all of that garbage, as always, holding gaming back for a very, very significant margin.
Of course, to not expect this to release on PS5 and Xbox Series X, I do think that this is going to be in that weird place where you see it release on, PS5 and, of course, Xbox Series X, and then on top of it, PlayStation 6, Xbox Series X. I don't think they're going to want to leave behind an entire crowd or audience that, are essentially, I suppose you would say, stuck on PS5 and Xbox Series X, because I'm assuming that you're going to see a shortage of PlayStation 6s and the next Xbox, and it's going to be a whole thing. And we're going to see it take some time before you see games become, I suppose you would say, like, exclusive to that next generation of consoles. And of course, a big concern is AI in the game development process. AI has become extremely controversial, but there's also some really good things that it can bring to the table. And we have this quote right here. Check it out. It says, "My gut tells me that AI for pipelines, for tools for helping with, let's call it, the busy work that no one really likes to do a lot of times, I think there's a lot of promising stuff on that front. It allows..."
I don't think using AI is a bad thing, as long as they literally don't go the Bethesda Starfield route, that they make one thing in the game that's handcrafted and poorly at that, obviously, and everything else is the equivalent of, "My face is tired, I'm sorry." Disaster. Absolute disaster. Anyway, yeah, AI... it's kind of hot button topic still a little bit, I guess. It can be good, it can be bad. If they use AI sparingly where no one gives a shit, sure, Hey, if they have a room and they need to add 3 boxes, yeah, sure, use AI to add those 3 boxes wherever it feels like good or whatever. But, they're obviously... I don't think that we are even remotely close to a risk that CDPR Project Red is going to start using AI like madmen on everything and generate 10,000 planets or some garbage like that, and then Todd Howard literally jizzes himself because that's the future. No, I don't think we're at risk of that. Okay? So, hopes for Orion. High. Risks that I see for Orion. Relatively not visible yet, but the roots are definitely there. The roots have been planted 2 years ago at this point, or even more. And, well, it is what it is. It could be disastrous, it could be slightly it could be no one cares. We're just gonna have to wait and see for more information. That's all I can tell you for now. In any case, that was our boy, Open World Games. And this was Quizzer Sensei. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.